Struggling to discuss sex and intimacy with your partner?
Not feeling met, seen, or heard in your relationships?
I'm Janelle.
And I'm Andrea. We're two midlife mavericks sharing our own experiences.
Messy AF and no regrets.
With marriage, divorce, polyamory, and pleasure.
We've learned that when you're brave enough to figure out what you want and ask for it,
with partners, friends, family, and most importantly, yourself,
you'll feel more alive and free.
Question everything, especially your mother's advice.
There's no rom-com formula for this, but don't panic.
Being alone matters. Honey, I can't miss you if you don't leave.
What if your breakup could be your breakthrough?
Our podcast is for brave hearts.
Anyone who seeks or has found the courage to confront their fears and limiting beliefs about breaking societal norms in the spirit of finding their truth.
If you're seeking permission to be brave in your relationships
and want to feel less alone along the way, we got you. Brave Hearts, I'm excited for you to meet Amelia and hear her description of human design. Human design was like my intro to woo, and I think she did such a great job at explaining how it's a useful framework in very concrete terms to build a relationship with ourselves.
Yeah, I was struck by Amelia's love and passion for human design and the way that she helps people connect. I mean, really, she's saying that this tool helps people love better, right? And that was the mic drop moment for me. Like, you're going to hear...
And love themselves better, and then be able to love the people that they love better. Yeah.
Yes. And there's a breakdown of the types, and it's not too heady. And I have to say, I was a little suspicious. I'm a little suspect of the human design, and it's a great 101 to say, okay, like this is possible, and there's something here for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So enjoy. Welcome, Brave Hearts. I'm Janelle.
And I'm Andrea. We're so glad you're here.
Mm-hmm. We are continuing our season 4, How to Build a Relationship with Yourself. And today is going to be really exciting. We have another expert. She's one of mine. And she's going to be talking about human design.
Amelia Broughton is a human design coach and consultant, relational leadership facilitator, and devoted purveyor of connection, pioneering a more emotionally intelligent, communication savvy, and connected world. She designs transformative experiences that awaken and strengthen the innate capacity we all have to form dynamic, meaningful relationships. Amelia's way of being in the world is nourished by earth-based wisdom, ancestral healing, tea ceremony, and qigong. And she lives for the magic of the unseen. Looking forward to diving into that. Amelia is passionate about listening, group energetics, the human story, and guiding people to awaken to the truth of who they are. Featured on nearly a dozen podcasts with multiple certifications, her most curious claim to fame is that as a reflector, you'll find out more about what that means in a minute, which it means that she is part of just 1% of the population. Interactions with her leave people feeling more connected to themselves, to each other, and to the world around them. Amelia, welcome to Permission to be Human.
So excited to be here with you ladies.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And Brave Hearts, just for you to know that I have known Amelia for a number of years now, and I've actually had sessions with her on human design. Because one of the unique things is that I'm also a reflector, and so it's a real gift that I got to have sessions with another reflector. Okay, so the first thing we're just going to talk about is, Amelia, can you describe how human design can help? Well, first, can you describe what it is? Mm-hmm. And then describe how does it help build a relationship with ourselves?
Yeah, definitely. So human design is this dynamic system. It's a framework. It's a system based on pattern that helps us through our birth time, date, and location know ourselves more deeply. There's different ways that our energy can operate more effectively and in harmony with what we're here to do in this life. And human design is an access place. It gives us keys to different parts of ourselves, things that we're struggling with, things that are our gifts, places that we're here to thrive, and places that will feel some tension in ourselves. And so it's again based on our birth time, date, and location. And those different pieces are going to illuminate a different blueprint for every single person based on something that is truly out of your control, right? So it's not a system that cares about your feelings. It's a system that's here to really reflect and deepen you into yourself and give you that clear mirror of who you are. So,
I'm going to pause you right. I'm going to just pause you right there. Okay, thanks. With that, I understand human design in many different ways, but as one is it helps me know how I make decisions in right relationship with myself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Would you say that is the main, I have heard that to be the main component.
Yeah.
Would you describe it that way, Amelia?
I think it's absolutely that, right? Like the biggest thing that can happen in life is we try to figure out our way through life, and we don't necessarily source from our inner wisdom. We source from external conditioning. And so absolutely, Janelle, what you're saying about finding what is the best way for me to make decisions is a foundational part of human design. All the other pieces of the puzzle that I mentioned about learning about ourselves are huge parts of it. And yet, if we know how to listen to ourselves, if we know what to ground in, that is one of the most powerful things to making choices that you really need for yourself.
So I just want to be clear, because there's so many different tests like this, right? Like we need, and they're very popular now, and you get a lot of experts around each one of these tests. So with this one, it's just based on those facts. There's no quiz, there's no self-assessment. That's the only thing we're going on. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Things like some of you may be familiar with Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or really any of these personality disc profile where we fill in the answers, right? It's so subjective. How am I feeling that day? Do I feel good about myself? Am I having a hard day? And yet, like I said, human design doesn't care about your feelings. And I don't mean that in a mean way. It's really that it's not based on anything that you can control. You were born when you were born, right? So absolutely, it's simply based on your birth information.
Can you dive a little bit deeper into how human design can help someone build a relationship with themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it depends where we're meeting the system, right? I find a lot of people find it in places of transition. That's something that I often experience with clients is they've lived a life up until a point where, coasted through, they did what their parents told them, they followed their heart, right? There's very different ways that we walk through the world. And I find that when whoever comes to human design, it's often this deep affirming permission slip of these things that we've always known about ourselves. And yet no one necessarily told us those things. We might have had people share reflections, and yet it's really this aha or realization or feeling feeling seen by somebody who you can have a session with, or there's so much on the internet, books that you can find on human design. But I find the awakening to who we are, our gifts, our skills, how we live through the world, the ways that we've experienced relationships, all of these pieces are found when we start to dive into the different pieces of the puzzle that make up our charts, that make up things like these words like type and profile and gates, right? There's many dimensions. That's one thing about human design is it's got a lot of dimension to it. And so do you as a human being. We're incredibly dimensional people. So, yeah.
And that I want to just share with Brave Hearts. Human design for me was one of my earliest access point into woo and into this journey home to myself regarding because I'm a reflector, which Amelia said is 1% of the population. without knowing anything, I was just like, oh, I'm 1% of something. I'm just curious about that. What does that mean? And that's all it took, was that one bit of curiosity about myself, that this framework reflected to me, that I started walking and diving deep into it.
What I'm hearing for Bravehearts is that if you want to build a relationship with yourself and you don't know where to start, human design could be a platform with which to lead. And you'll get information about yourself that you can dive into and just see where that takes you. It's a fabulous concrete tool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's really easy. And in fact, I think Amelia at the end of this will say how you can get your profile and where you can go for all that. And what I would also say is it's just, and we've talked about this so much on the podcast, is you're trusting yourself. This isn't, oh, I should do this because Janelle and Andrea and Amelia said this. It's like, oh, I just listened to this podcast and something in me sparked. And so the invitation is to listen to the spark. And if there's no spark, then you don't have to worry about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'll say when putting in your chart into, your information into it and getting your chart, it can be a lot to receive at first, right? And just what I invite people more than anything when you're receiving this framework is take one piece that you see, right? Like there will be a lot of different information around the chart properties. It might be your type. You might see something like reflector, manifestor, manifesting generator, projector. If that's where you start, go seek information about your type, right? There's so many different pieces of the puzzle that will start to come together the more that you explore. And I think the other thing to say on that is you can see this piece of paper, you can see this chart and just know it. And it's really not just knowing it that makes the difference. It's actually going to experiment with it, right? What does it mean to live as a projector? What does it mean to rest when I need rest? What does it mean to not be running the candle at both ends, but taking a pause throughout my day to really check in with myself? Like these are different parts of our experiment with human design that really matter. Because like with anything, any different framework we can receive, we can know these things about ourselves, but it's actually like experimenting with how it means to move through the world, to move through our relationships, that actually makes the difference with these things. So yes, receive this framework, go look up your chart, and then like go try it out. That's what I always like to say. Don't take my word for it. Go find out what happens when you live as a reflector, when you try out being a manifesting generator in the world, right? Like that's where the juice is, truly.
What would you say are some of the obstacles that people have when it comes to building a relationship with themselves?
Yeah. So I like to think back on my journey, right? When I started out being a human being in this world, a lot of what I'd been told was how to belong, how to be accepted, how to be loved, was to be doing, was to be having a purpose, was to be impactful. And while those are all things that are very meaningful to me, I was very conditioned towards excellence. And how I'd seen excellence modeled was having 5 jobs at the one time, putting my hands in multiple different pots in any given moment, working all hours of the day. And I was really burnt out. And I was ultimately trying to operate much like a manifesting generator, where multi-passionate, very dynamic, can be like 0 to 100. And that was not sustainable for me, right? And so one of the obstacles I find is when I found this information for me, it was very confronting. It's like, what do you mean I have to be more patient? What do you mean that I need to slow down? What do you mean that I'm not supposed to be impulsive? Because I just was impulsive, people pleaser to a T. That is all what I was taught to do. And so some of the biggest obstacles are where we're really unlearning all the things that we took along the course of our life from people of impact, whether it's our parents, our family systems, teachers, friends, social groups, life as a whole, right? The collective, the norms of the collective, and noticing those parts within myself where I was ultimately being dishonest with what I actually needed, right? So I think that's another part is like where we are dishonest with our needs, dishonest with the way we want to be met by ourselves because we think we have to be some way to be liked, to belong, to fit in, to be part of the whatever system it is that we've, grown up being around or thinking is just the way.
You're like hitting on, we just recorded another podcast with Andrea right before this.
Mm.
And these are so much like is how to build a relationship with ourselves and how to be is part of being honest with ourselves. What have you found that if people in using this human design framework to learn some of the truths about themselves, and I'm hearing you say this isn't a truth you're telling them, or that human design is telling them. It is a here's some ideas, try this out, and I'll share one where, as a reflector, and so Braveheart, just so you know that Andrea is a manifesting generator, so we are very different. I don't know though,
and I imagine Bravehearts don't know. Like, you guys are both like, oh yeah, you guys are so different. Like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean?
Totally. Okay. So there are 5 different types. Our main way that our energy moves through the world. And those different types are the main ones that are talked about are manifestors, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors. So 9% of the population are manifestors. They're the initiators. They're the fire starters is one way you can think about them. Then we got manifesting generators like yourself, people that have many different hands in many different pots. I think of them as cross-pollinators. They tend to be trailblazers. They're not here to do any one thing. They actually need variety. Being able to pivot is so important in their life to notice where they're lit up. Which leads me into generators. Generators and manifesting generators make up about 70% of the population. So we're very much living in a world of generator types. And generators are here to be lit up by their life. I think of them as the earth element. They're like methodical. They're here for mastery. And then projectors are about 20% of the population. They're here to be guides. I often think of them as this like new world leader archetype where they're really good at lots of moving parts, high level systems. They're here to work smarter, not harder. They're often conditioned to work like generators, like battery packs of the world. And then we have the 1%, which is reflectors. And we are here to be reflections of groups and communities and evaluators of and reflections of the people and the environments and the groups and the communities that we are involved in. And we operate like aliens in comparison to the rest of the world, the 99% of the world, in that we move at a very different pace when it comes to decision making. So it's a little like taste of each one, but I think when we talk about the reflector manifesting generator, how that's so different, like Janelle was saying, reflectors are like slow snails in comparison to the pace of a manifesting generator. The pace of a manifesting generator generally is like 0 to 100, right? Like they like efficiency. They're like, how many things can happen in short period of time, versus reflectors don't always operate at that same pace. There are always nuance and things that would be different for each person based on your chart. But again, if we're thinking broad brushstrokes, those are some tasting points.
Again, building a relationship with ourselves, right? I heard you mention, Amelia, that like, oh, like what's something that lights them up? I think you actually said about manifesting generators, like what lights them up? How does human design help them figure that out?
What lights them up? Something that I often say to generator and manifesting generator types is notice where you literally your body feels electric towards something. It feels lit up. It feels like it wants to gravitate towards something. And one of the biggest things that can also be an obstacle specifically for manifesting generators and generator types is a disconnection from their body. We have especially as women, I think, but really everyone has a fraught relationship of some kind with their body. And so sometimes one of the obstacles is really remembering and learning through whatever journey you need to take to do that, how to listen to your body, right? If you feel dissociated, disconnected for probably a very, very good reason, that is something that may be part of your journey. It's like, oh, okay, I'm here to be lit up by life, but right now I feel so frustrated, or I feel disconnected from what my body is telling me how it feels when I'm moving through my life, right? And so that in itself can be a big piece for somebody on the journey as a manifesting generator. If they feel that they don't know how to access that, it's like, okay, right, we start here. Right? This is the most important part, because your body as a generator type it's the fuel, it's the vitality, it's the life force that is here to be satisfied by what you're pouring your energy into on a daily basis. So, everyone again has their different access point, and that's for a manifesting generator is absolutely one of the things that I would say. It's like, what is lighting you up right now? And I can't tell you what that is. Only you know, right? Only you can do that journey. That's not my work to do for you.
So is human design just informing me that that's something I need to be aware of? Or does human design help me tap into my body and give me tools to do that?
I think it's going to be different for every person, the specific tools you use. And so I wouldn't say there's like a prescribed human design says you need to do meditation for 5 days and blah, blah, blah. It's more so like a guiding, I like to think of it as a flashlight, right? We're like, oh, what's here? And shining that flashlight on a part of life that you may have just not known to notice, right? And so being like, oh, what is it, Andrea, that lights you up? What is it that brings you into that state of satisfaction? And also like what brings you into the frustration, right? And these two words are for manifesting generators and generators around where you're feeling connected to yourself, which in human design language would be called your signature, and where you are disconnected, or what I think of as like a self-abandoned state, where you're in a state of frustration, right? In some way, shape, and form, you've gone like towards something you think you should be doing, or trying to prove something, or what have you, right? And again, it's going to be different for everyone, those pieces of the puzzle and how they come together. And so I also find that human design can illuminate, okay, where are these pitfalls for you? Is it that you often find you feel like you need to prove yourself? Is it that you're constantly fixated on a to-do list and that pressure is driving you, is running the show of your life, versus like finding your way and your pace, So yeah, there's a few different pieces of the puzzle in there, but.
Okay.
What I'm hearing is there's a roadmap that's potential that is here.
Yeah.
But that it's, again, like you as a human design, is it called facilitator, right? Or coach or something?
Yeah.
That all you're saying is like, oh, here's where the road is, and here's some like signposts of it. But the actual like what you're seeing along the way, what are the little shops or what are the little like trees and the flowers of your road are for you to notice, for you to see, for you to take in. Yeah, and my experience was, and you kind of spoke to this, is it did just illuminate. It was like, oh, I remember, so as you just said, the signature for a reflector is the word disappointment. And I remember, and I was like, oh, that's weird. I don't ever feel disappointed. And then like, honestly, within 24 hours, I did something and I was like, oh, that feeling is the feeling of disappointment. Like I just didn't even know that feeling. I didn't have the ability for whatever reason to connect feelings to words. And so like human design kind of just like laid out some words that I knew in my body were correct. It wasn't like, oh, that's what she said. It was like, oh, I feel this now.
Yeah.
Now I understand something about myself that I didn't know before.
Yeah. And like you said, the signature and the not self for reflectors. Surprise is like, oh my gosh, I'm connected to something in myself. And I could not have predicted it going like that. I also think of delight and bliss as reflector qualities, and then our not self is that disappointment, right? And yeah, whether it's putting language to feelings we've had our entire life. I also like to say, like, satisfaction for you maybe is probably different from satisfaction from another person. So we have to
Mm-hmm.
define that feeling for ourselves, right? And I always say this for projectors, which projectors is success and bitterness. Like, okay, success is a bastardized word in some ways in the Western world. Like, it means so many things to so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is success like to you? What does it feel like when you are seen, when you are recognized as a projector? And how do you define success? Is it the conditioned model where it's like millions of dollars, house, car, is that it? Or is it something else? What is that success for you? And for manifestors, it's going to be anger and peace. It's like, where do you feel that peaceful, calm, I'm able to do my thing and vision without anybody getting in the way of what I'm here to initiate into fruition, versus where someone's like telling you what to do and anger just is crunchy and just living in your body, right? That's going to be for a manifestor. And generators is also satisfaction and frustration. And so each person's going to have their version. And it's not to say like none of us are ever going to experience disappointment if we're not a reflector, right? Like that's just not true. We're going to feel the full spectrum. And yet when we start to really get into the everyday of our life, those themes towards whatever type you are going to be more dominant, more likely. And we get to tune into those. Oh, wow, I've been living my life towards disappointment, which was my life pre human design. I lived an entire life of disappointment, preemptively signing myself up for things that didn't lead to more connection with myself, led to so much self-abandonment, right? And so when we walk our journey, we can see, oh, okay, what if I start moving the needle differently? What if I'm more oriented towards myself than the conditioning, the narratives, the ways of being for whatever reason we have? So
Mm-hmm. And so with that, you're kind of like getting into like, what are the benefits, right, that human design offers somebody who wants to build a relationship with themselves?
oh my gosh, I have been doing this now for 8+ years. I've really been richly steeped in what I call my experiment, living truly connected to myself. And I would say at least 90% of the time, I am in a state of surprise and delight and bliss. That is a huge thing to say, and yet that is where I feel most of my presence, my attention has become, because I'm so fiercely committed to noticing those moments where I can self-abandon or have self-abandoned, right? And so the opportunity I find with human design when we're really trying it out, like, okay, I've been told that I need to listen to my body, and I need to, listen to this sacral sound, this gut feeling that I have. And the more I've been doing it, the more satisfied I feel. With the types, right? We talked about this manifesting generators, reflectors, projectors. There's also something called your authority. And your authority is one of those things that can really help you make choices that are congruent, that are connected to yourself. And so when you get into your authority, what the opportunity is for listening to this, it's like a compass. Like we all have an inner compass that can help us find our north, find our guiding star. Some of us are people that really need to connect to our bodies, that need to listen, right? That might be a sacral authority if that's you. Some of us really need to wait, like Janelle and I, where we change over the course of 28-day lunar cycle, and there's different information that emerges for us over that time. We're very slow in comparison to a lot of society. There are some of you that may be solar plexus or emotional, and that's all about noticing where you are moving from highs and lows in life, right? You are inherently here to have emotions. It's one of the most beautiful things about you is your emotions. And yet, if you let your emotions run you, which they can, then you may not be able to move from a place where you feel steady in yourself. And so, learning these different pieces of the puzzle about ourselves can really inform what's my best way of listening to my inner compass. Not, oh, I should be impulsive or I should be doing this thing, but oh, I'm actually someone who needs to slow down today. Or maybe it's like, oh, yep, I know in the moment and I don't need to second guess it and I don't need to overanalyze it and I'm clear. But that may not be what my friend or partner. So we all can learn and have compassion for ourselves when we're different for other people too. I think that's another huge component is we're all here to be different. That's what human design is. It's the science of differentiation. It's a science that like we are all different, beautiful beings that have a unique encoding that deserves reverence in how we listen to it.
You just mentioned relationships, like just like dinged in my head, right?
Right.
Is it's not about, in this case, like Andrea and I being the same. It's just like understanding our differences. And that could be true in, the person that we're living with or even with our child, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The relational, having a relational background as well and working in the world of emotional intelligence and relationships, when I find that we can understand our person, our partner, through the light of human design, a lot of those moments of conflict and tension can start to be alleviated. It doesn't mean they just go away and I'm suddenly okay with however my partner is different from me. And yet those moments where, especially with my partner, he's a projector, he's very impulsive and quick, and I am complete opposite of that. We have code words. We have ways of listening to each other and affirming each other without being like, no, I don't like that, or that's not going to work for me, right? And so we can have compassion and understanding, like you said, for our kids, for our partners, for our parents, for our friends, and being able to say, oh, yeah, how can I love you better from this place? And how can you love me better from this place? It has been night and day being able to really share what is true for me with my partner so that he's not left in the dark about the very strange ways that I tend to move through the world. Right?
Amelia, something that you shared with me was you said that human design awakens us to our unique zone of genius. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So in the context of human design, there are all these different gifts and skills that we can start to see that are natural to us, right? Somebody who really brings a sense of empowerment to the circles they're in just by being themselves, right? By shining in their uniqueness. And that uniqueness is going to look different for every single person. But one of the things I find is when we can start getting into some of the gates, some of these traits about ourselves, Gene Keys is also something that, if you're familiar with this, can support this awakening, support this understanding of yourself. But for example, there's something called your incarnation cross that is based off of these gates. And your incarnation cross gives you these different skills and qualities that you're inherently here to walk through the world with, right? So something, for example, for me is I am here to provide direction, to provide a sense of self-trust and help people find their purpose. That is something I know about me based on what I know from my human design, right? Something I know that can be true for you, Janelle, is you're here to show love, love in all its forms, right? And so that's one of your zone of geniuses. It's how do we move through the world with love? Love for ourselves, love for our bodies, love for the extremes of our humanity, love for all of the magic that life brings, right? And the hard stuff that life brings. And so these are the different zones of genius. It becomes, instead of, oh my gosh, what am I here for? Which isn't true for everyone, but definitely was true for me and a good percent of the population, where people get overwhelmed with, what is my purpose? What am I here to do? Right? And there's so many things to follow now in the information age that we live in. And so it has us start to filter out some of that noise so we can really start to see what are those things that have just been part of the background, been part of the painting of my life, all those pigments that have always been there, but maybe I've just been paying attention to something else. And that is absolutely something that is embedded within the different dimensions of the chart of how we move through the world in our zones of genius.
So you mentioned the gene keys, which I've also heard, but what I don't understand is how they work with human design. Are they the same as human design? Are they separate? Do I need both of them? Can I just do one?
Yeah.
How does
That's
this
a
work?
good question. So Richard Rudd, who's the founder of the Gene Keys, he was deep in the human design world before the Gene Keys came into fruition. And so the Gene Keys and human design are based off of the I Ching. The I Ching is embedded into both of those frameworks. And so you'll see 64 gates in human design, and you'll hear 64 gene keys. They have similar tones, different language. Richard uses different language, and yet when I work with them harmonically, because it adds more richness to the picture and the conversation. But that's how they relate, is they're based off similar foundations or roots, if you will, and they've just bloomed in different ways in the world through their different frameworks.
So if I go into human design, am I going to get gene keys, or I could do all of human design without gene keys?
You could do all of human design without gene keys, and you could do all of gene keys without human design. You don't need them together, and if you want to put them together, they add just more to your life, but you don't need them together. Yeah.
I see.
Great
Okay.
question.
They complement each other.
So
Is that
complementary.
right? Okay.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
So one thing, when you said, "Oh, Janelle, like you're here to like express love, and I am a vessel of love," is in my mantra, and it's true. Like I just know that to be true, and I have just known and that has been true my whole life. I know that to be true now, and this is where, for those of you who are in the woo, are like skeptical of woo, it's kind of wild to say that because of where I was born and what time I was born and what year I was born, that this thing is true about me. It can be hard, like that I didn't choose this, that it just is true. And yet I do get to choose how I embody it and how I live it. But I just want to call out that I recognize, Bravehearts, that Amelia is saying something in our chart is telling us about an essence of us that we don't control. And that takes a leap of faith.
Like a courageous act for sure. Yeah. And, I've read hundreds and hundreds of people's charts at this point, people I've never met and probably will never meet in person, people that come from the complete not woo, right? That are very, very different paradigms of thinking. And we get on the session and I start to share these things, and, they're in awe and shock and disbelief simultaneously, that I could start to say some things that feel so true and honest about what they've known about themselves throughout their life, right? And I always say, if I say something that doesn't resonate, leave it. Don't take something because I told you. Really notice what it's like for you, right? And so if there's resonance there, if there's something that lights up in you because you've read something, great. And if there's something that pushes back and says, I'm not so sure, I invite you to hold that as a deeper intelligence, because there's probably a really good reason. There's either a conflict in your chart, or you are a very logical person, right? We can see that someone will be more logical and more like, I don't know about this. This seems woo-woo, until we start to have more of a conversation where it's about patterns. It's about calculations in so many ways too. And so, yeah, wherever you're finding this, whether you're more in the woo or you're in the I'm not so sure, yes, I invite that. probably makes sense for what your chart is to just dial it in, but also you'll
Mm-hmm.
find your way to it if it resonates.
Mm-hmm. And as someone who, like I said, like this was my first introduction to woo, that I was like, oh, there's something here because I saw so much of myself in this chart that felt true. But prior to that, I was like a hard no to anything woo. It just didn't, it wasn't true for me. I just was a super skeptic. And as we have said, like now I'm like as deep as it gets. Um, so what has been your experience, Amelia, when clients do start working with you? What happens when they, well, not only working with you, but working with human design, what happens when they start knowing themselves?
Oh, some of the biggest things that I found is there's this, it's like steeping in oneself that starts to occur. And a lot of the distraction or the places where people get tripped up don't become as relevant. They don't become the thing that we give as much of our attention and thus our gravity to. And the gravity, the central gravity starts to become more with yourself. And what happens from that place is what I've seen at least is people start to actually take steps towards the dreams that they've had their entire lives. They start to say, oh, like I was questioning this thing and now I'm not going to question it anymore. Or this feeling I've had, I'm going to move towards it versus be confused by it and want to overanalyze it. So there's so much more permission to live in the ways that have always felt best for them, but they've been trying to like conform or fit or adjust or contort sometimes themselves for whatever really good reason that led them to believe that's what they needed to do. So to me, it's one of the greatest places of liberation. I don't try to be like a manifesting generator anymore because I know it will lead me down a path of not good return. And
Right.
yet, right? And that's for everyone, is everyone has their path that's going to enrich their lives through finding what lights them up, what turns them on, what feels soothing in their nervous system versus a struggle or a conflict against who they are.
It sounds so awesome. Like I'm just like, oh, well, everybody should do this, right? If that's
Yeah.
really true.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would you say that human design is pretty accessible? Like, I think there was a little. I remember thinking I think Janelle loaned me this Gene Keys book. I think it was the Gene Keys book versus the human design, and it was massive. I'm talking it was a tome.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, and so I'm associating that with human design, and so maybe that's not the same, but it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do I just start small, right? Do I buy a book? Do I
That's a
hire a
great
coach?
question.
Do I just like look online after I figure out, you said I'm a 1-3?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that this is one of the biggest things that has been worked on over the last few years is that the more mainstream human design has become, the more there's been lots of different access points, right? Whether it's the millions of things on social media at this point of being able to find bite-sized pieces of something to start getting your palette wet with human design. That did
Right.
not always used to be the case. And it is there. I think this is one of the biggest tension points with human design that I personally have is that on the one hand, oh my gosh, great, so many people being able to access human design. And human design isn't just one piece of the puzzle, like finding out your type. It's the dimension. And this is one of those conversations where it's like we're minimizing ourselves to pieces versus remembering how complex, dynamic, and multidimensional we are. And so if you want to start with the foundation. Start with your type, start with your strategy, start with your authority. Start there. And don't get too crazy unless you're a 1-3 and you're like, give me everything and I need to learn now, right? Which may or may not resonate for you, depending on if it lights you up, right? If human design lights you up, you may not stop reading. I don't know, but I'm sure there are other things in your life where you want to dig and dig and dig and dig.
For me, human design showed me how I make decisions. And at the time when I learned this, I was living with a generator, someone with a sacral authority, which meant that they were like instantaneous gut, yes or no.
Yeah.
And I was someone who I learned through human design needs more than a month to make decisions. And I got to see myself when I started experimenting. And I'm going to use an example of buying a car, where I knew I needed to buy a car. And like the first car I looked at, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is going to be the car. I know I want a red car and I know this is it. Perfect. But then I was like, oh, but wait, this is day one. What happens if I just keep waiting? And so I kept, and I realized, and there's moments I was like, I just need to do more research. Like it must be a gate in my chart that says I need to do more research. And I do more research and I do more research. And at one point I was like, oh, okay, I'm just in the research phase of my decision making. And I can get excited, but I know I'm in a research phase. And then essentially, and it's not always just a month, sometimes it's a little bit, it can be longer. But then suddenly something inside me goes, oh, that's the car. And then I just know.
Yeah.
And so instead of getting like, oh my gosh, I want a car today. It's like, oh, I'm not going to get a car today.
Wait.
I just started. It's going to be another month or whatever it is, however long it's going to be. And for my decision making, it does require a lot of research. Like I have to go in so I can like think through all of the different possibilities, all the different ways. Like, is there any loopholes that I've missed? Can I get a discount? Can I get a better interest rate? Whatever it is. And then the package comes together. And then my inner knowing is like, we're complete. I can make a decision now.
I love
and that was so freeing.
So freeing. I love that you use the car.
Yeah,
That's
right.
I had a very similar experience.
Oh, really?
With my car bike. Yeah. What are you gonna say?
I also hear Janelle, what came up for me when you were talking is that, oh, you were living with someone who made instantaneous decisions. So to me, I can imagine that would make you feel like, I don't want to project something on you, but like, oh, must be something wrong with me that I'm taking a month, that I'm taking so long, that I can't just hop on. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just figure it out? Right. There tends to be that just self-judgment right away. Like, oh, we're different. We're slower. And there is really a like, oh, you're not supposed to do things slowly, right? You're supposed to do things quickly in our society. So I can imagine you thinking that when in fact, that's not true at all.
Right. 100%. That like, so many people in our culture are generators and like I put my partner on a pedestal and diminished myself, diminished my own value. With I didn't know at the time the value of me being sure of my decision and just how long it took. Like it didn't matter how long it took. What was more important was how long it took me to make the right decision for me. And part of human design helped me find my voice in saying, when someone else said, can't you make a decision faster? And I'm like, no. I mean, and obviously I can make a decision at a restaurant if I'm having dinner in like 2 minutes. But when it's like, are you going to move to Colombia, or are you going to move, or are you going to buy a car, or what? It's like, oh no, this is going to take a while.
The choice is the whole gravity for you.
Yeah. Fascinating. Love it.
It's so powerful. And also, I just want to emphasize what you said, Janelle, about like taking the time and doing the research. And I recently found this 4/6 reflector. And one of the things he said was so powerful for me as a reflector is like, it's about positioning ourselves over the course of those 28 days. Like being in conversation with different people that bring different things out of us, right? Because that's so much of what a reflector does is we reflect our environment. So you're living with a generator, you feel like, I'm excited now. I'm lit up. I could make this choice now too. It's like, oh wait, but if I go away from that generator, what actually is true here for me? Outside of the influence of that person, right? And so it's so powerful when we can start to understand what we really need in those moments of making choices throughout our lives, that we are connected to ourselves versus conditioned to be fast, conditioned to be slow, conditioned to be whatever it means to make the life choices that are best for us.
And what I'm also hearing with that, right, in the relationship with Andrea and I, right, her as a manifesting generator, like sometimes she'll be like, you're so even keeled, like you're just so like, you're just, everything's like this. But like, that is me. And she's supposed to be intense. She is intense. She's a manifesting generator and of all of her different types. And it's like, and her, like my feelings of surprise and delight are not correct for her if she's going for like peace and satisfaction. Right. But it's, I think it can be very hard not to compare ourselves to others and thinking, oh, well, she is operating in a way that feels really like, I like how she's operating. So shouldn't I be like that? When it's not, that's not true. It's like, oh, what's the feeling that gets you into that similar state? But what are the actions that you need to take for yourself? Okay.
Wow.
Bravehearts, this has been juicy. You've got some concrete stuff. So the Braveheart homework for those who tune into themselves and feel something light up listening to this and want to learn more would be to get your profile. So Amelia, where did they go to do that?
Yeah. So I personally love a website called My Body Graph. I find it's very interactive. You can click things, you can find out things. It's a really good one to use on your computer. If you want a quick and easy app, I find that My Human Design app is another one that's really great. It gives you a lot of different information. The biggest thing is like some things have paywalls, and so really finding free human design charts wherever they may be is going to give you the greatest like ease point for yourself. And make sure you look at the chart properties where all the information is, because if you just look at the chart, you're going to get overwhelmed.
And Amelia, if they wanted to, okay, so now they've got their chart, they're looking at it, they're like, I don't know what this is. I would like to work with someone because something inside of them says working with someone is the easiest way for them to get information. Then how do they work with you?
Yeah, so if you go to my website, ameliabroughton.com, I have a whole list of different opportunities to work with me, whether it's doing a one-on-one session where we'll dive deep for 75 minutes. If you're like, I want to get into my relationship, I do relationship readings where we bring both of your charts to the table. Turns out when two people to come together, a third chart gets created. And so there's so much richness there. And then if you're like, I'm ready to go on a full journey, 6 months, I have my Belong, helping leaders feel at home in themselves coaching program where human design, gene keys, so many different modalities I integrate, human design being a foundational one. And we go on that deep journey to helping you live as who you are as a leader in this world, in touch with who you are and connected as your zone of genius.
Beautiful. And can they reach you at your website or?
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Website, you can find me also on Instagram, Broughton Connect. Reach out to me there. All the information is there as well. Yeah.
Okay. Bravehearts, her information will be in the show notes. And Amelia, just thank you so much. I mean, as much as I know human design, you are this expert in it, steeped in it, and it was such a beautiful explanation as to why it can be a useful tool and framework for people on this journey home to themselves.
Yeah. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you, Bravehearts. We love you. We'll see you next time in Permission to Be Human.
Bye. Hey, Bravehearts, looking for permission?
Work with us.
Andrea offers permission coaching.
And Janelle offers erotic wellness sessions.
Follow us on Instagram.
Meet us in real life at Permission to Be Human workshops in Denver.
Subscribe to our newsletter.
Do all this and more at our website, permissiontobehuman.live.